Hi, is this the short-haired old white men Herblore enthusiast group?
Yep, we go by Show Me for short. Glad to have you. Would you like to be part of today's meeting?
Sure. Can I have some herbs?
Absolutely. We give free herbs to all. Just take some from the ground over there.
Oh, duh, I forgot. I can't pick it up.
Why not?
Ironman, by the way.
What if, between me and you, we considered it stealing the herbs instead?
Thieving isn't released yet.
You are a strange person for sure. I guess it can't be helped. You just won't be able to take any herbs. What are you doing?
Sorry, if I want to get back to the present, I need herbs rightfully obtained by me. Unfortunately for you, that means I need to unrightfully murder you for them.
Please, no!
Don't worry, you'll respawn.
Respawn?
Yep, and then I'll kill you again for more herbs.
Oh god!
See you in about 15 seconds. In February 2002, players who ventured into members for the first time quickly discovered that most monsters now dropped many different types of unidentified herbs. These herbs quickly became known as Unids, and with a high enough herblore level, players could identify their specific types. Today, Unids have been converted into grimy herbs, but the mechanic of cleaning the grimy herbs still mirrors identifying the Unids from days past. The herb, when identified or cleaned, could be combined with the correct secondary ingredient in a vial of water to create a potion with varying beneficial effects. There were potions that temporarily boosted melee stats, a potion that could cure the new status effect of poison, and most importantly, a potion that could restore prayer points without having to return to an altar to pray. Upon first release of the Herblore skill, however, herbs could only be obtained from monster drops and no other ways. With farming and other passive skilling ways of obtaining herbs far on the horizon, herbs and their respective potions were a rare and valuable commodity. To further exacerbate the issue, vials had to be bought and filled manually from the few Herblore shops that existed, and secondaries were slow to collect. All this will present a huge challenge as I'll have to unlock most of the potions available to move on from this month. Of course, Herblore stands out as a unique skill for another reason as well. This is because it was the only skill up to this point that could not be trained without first completing a quest, Druidic Ritual. We'll need to jump in straight away and get in touch with our Gothixian side and begin creating some of the most powerful brews that we can get our hands on. And unfortunately, the path to mastering this skill lies through a lot of murder. Are you ready? Let's go ahead and jump back into February 2002. Today we're actually going to go ahead and get a start on that Herblore grind. We need to, of course, begin with Druidic Ritual, but we have to collect a couple of items first before we can do that. So let's begin with the item collection. First thing we need is some giant rat meat. We also need some raw beef and raw chicken. And finally, we'll need some bear meat. So just north of Talvery, there's this ritual circle. And inside this ritual circle is a guy called Kakimex, and he gives me a quest to help them complete the ritual that they're starting to do here. Effectively, what happened was the Dark Wizard Circle south of Varrock that was used to summon Delirith was actually a druid circle originally. And in order to prevent the same thing happening to this circle, he wants to be able to sanctify the area here with a special potion. So he sends us off to go talk to Sanfu, who lives on top of the Herblore shop here. He's one of the Herblore experts in the area. He tells us he's got almost everything he needs to make the potion, except he needs 4 different types of meat, all dunked in the Cauldron of Thunder, which exists in the Talvery dungeon. And also, I can't talk to you, sorry Genie. I would love to though. So just south of town here is the Talvery dungeon. Just kind of is an unassuming ladder in the middle of these dead trees. But down here is one of the most iconic and expansive dungeons of the entire game. However, thankfully, we don't have to go very far in to actually get to the Cauldron of Thunder. It's just off to the right here. And here is one of many outdated quest mechanics. This actually kind of presented an interesting choice of paths. You could go all the way around and enter from the back and just have to brave some ghosts and some bats. Or you could try to enter from the front here and fight these suits of armor. Back in the day, these would actually lock you in combat for 3 rounds before you could leave, so you would actually pretty much have to kill them. But in the modern era, we know that we can just spam click the door and go right through and not have to worry about fighting them. But here's the Cauldron of Thunder, extremely unassuming, just sitting here in the middle of this cave. No one around. Very strange. And for some reason it turns the meat blue when I dump it in. Returning to Sanfu, we can give him all 4 meats that have been enchanted, and he will brew us a potion and have it shipped off to Kakimex for us. Finally, returning to Kakimex with the potion, he tells us some basics about how to actually train Herblore, and that'll be the end of the quest. That simple, 4 quest points, 250 Herblore experience, which puts us up to the level required to make the first potion. A very unassuming but very iconic quest. And we finally have our first members only skill trained up. Also, I just looked it up. Apparently his name is pronounced Cake Mix, not Kakimex. I have always pronounced it the former way. It's very improper, but that's how I pronounce it since I was a kid. So of course, even with the experience reward from the quest, our Herblore grind has only just begun. And the question remains, what are we gonna do to get herbs to keep training this skill up? And I have the perfect thing in mind. We actually need to return back to the Talvery dungeon. All the way in the very back corner of the opening part of the dungeon, there's a small ritual circle with a bunch of chaos druids surrounding it. And this is exactly where we're going to be collecting the vast majority of our herbs.
Through the power of murder.
As you can see, they drop up to 2 herbs per kill, so these are going to add up very quickly. They also have some other drops that could come very in handy, so I will be collecting as many as I can. And finally, I am going to try to pick up and bury every bone that I get, as prayer experience is obviously still very hard to come by, and even this slight passive benefit would be worth going for, so I've got a lot of bone bearing to do as well. So getting a full inventory of herbs is actually going to be pretty quick, but the slow part is going to be banking. I unfortunately need to walk all the way from this corner of Talvery Dungeon all the way up through Talvery and into Falador to actually deposit these into the bank. Of course, as you know, with no running. So as you can tell, I've got quite the Herblore grind ahead of me, and this actually means that I'm going to be taking another excessive grinding exception. This will be decently standard for whenever a new skill is released, as it doesn't really make sense to just complete the skill the month it is released, and it doesn't provide a lot of variety down the road with new training methods being released for that skill. Herblore is no different, as even though potions all the way up to level 72 and the ranging potion were released, I'm not going to be going all the way there until I have more effective and interesting methods of actually doing it. So instead, I'm going to be stopping at 55 Herblore, which is super strength potions. It seems like a fair midpoint and will still be quite a grind to achieve. At first I was thinking 60 would be a better midpoint, as getting a poisoned weapon would be pretty nifty, but as it turns out in RuneScape Classic, poisoned weapons could only be used in PvP. They took no effect in PvE or against NPCs, which is pretty lame actually. It seems like in RuneScape Classic, poison was just an environmental hazard instead of an actual mechanic to be used in combat. I could go to 66 Herblore and then complete the superset, but at that point I'm already over halfway to 72, so it didn't quite feel as good either. So after talking it out with the Discord, it seems like 55 is a good stopping point for this month. We'll go ahead and finish up 72 later on, of course. So I think that about sums up this next grind. I have to kill probably about 8 to 10,000 Chaos Druids to get up to 55 Herblore, so it's gonna be a long one. Let's get started. So about 5 minutes later, this is what the first inventory looks like. As you can see, it's really quick. This is about 37 kills. I did get a couple vials of water, and you might be wondering why I've decided to pick these up, but it's actually because I can go ahead and put some herbs directly into them to save inventory space. And because vials are going to be pretty annoying to get, I think it's worth doing while I get the drops. The other thing I got is 4 law runes. These guys actually drop a decent number of law runes, which is going to be absolutely incredible. However, I'm going to be investing a good number of them back into this grind by teleporting to Falador every time I can to bank, as long as I actually have some law runes on me. So by the end of the grind, I'm not sure if I'll have any law runes left or not. I am going to go ahead and swap to the Amulet of Strength, as I believe it gives me a max hit, and it's worth it over the Power Amulet, as obviously these guys don't have much defense to speak of. So that'll be the gear swap. Alright, there's 50 strength. It's going surprisingly a lot faster than I thought it would. I'm getting around 200 kills an hour with complete focus. Also, already in those 500 kills, I've banked about 12,000 Herblore experience, just under. So running the math, that means I have about 7,000 total to kill, so about 6,500 more. And at my current pace, that's really only just over 30 more hours or so. So really not too bad, I can't complain. I'm also going to go ahead and swap back to accurate, as obviously I'll need 60 attack for a requirement later in the month. So it's actually really kind of unfortunate. I was going to highlight this person as kind of a cute noob. They're really not in that newbie of gear though, but they're just using the controlled style on the Brine Saber, which I thought was kind of cute. But then I changed worlds and I realized here's another person also stabbing with the Brine Saber, different armor, but I think this is a bot farm. This is really unfortunate. Okay, now this is just weird. There's a guy here in Mystics casting magic with Firebolt, and in the very next world there's another person also doing the same thing with the same gear. Obviously a bot farm, but that is just incredibly strange. There has to be much more effective ways to train your magic, right? Alright, there is 60 attack, of course interrupted by combat, as most combat level ups are, but as we all know, 60 attack is a huge milestone, as now I will be able to equip the new highest tier of melee weaponry, Dragon. So you would think our next step is going to be to go complete Lost City so we can acquire the Dragon Sword and use that, right? But no, actually I'm not going to. This is one of the quirks of RuneScape 2 that wouldn't have existed in RuneScape Classic, but the Rune Sword is actually more DPS at the Chaos Druids than the Dragon Sword. It doesn't make sense for me to go get it at this point at all. If this were Classic, it would be 100% worth it, but because it's not, I'm going to stick with the Rune Sword for the remainder of this grind. And also, I've been burying basically every single bone I've gotten, and I'm about to hit 45 prayer, which will be 2 prayer levels so far. Realistically, if I keep this up and bury every single bone, I should make my way all the way up to 50 prayer before this is over, which is pretty nifty. In regards to total druid kills, I'm actually just under 2,500 kills, and based on the Herblore experience that I've calculated the herbs I've gotten so far will give me, that's about 50,000 Herblore experience. This means that I'm realistically just about a third or just over a third of the way to 55 Herblore, which is our goal. And realistically, I'll be on my way to kill somewhere between 6,500 and 7,500 druids. But honestly, this has been incredibly chill. This has been one of my favorite grinds so far, and I really don't know why. Overall, I think it's been about 10 hours, and I will probably see you in about 10 more. Oh, the absolute innocence. This other Iron came by and said hi, logged out and added me, and then he pings me and says, if you need a tip or trick, let me know. I've read a lot. I think I also have read a lot, buddy. So this thing you see on the ground right here, this uncut diamond, is actually really interesting. Because it's a rare drop table drop and I don't have a Ring of Wealth, it's actually a 1 out of 8,000 drop from Chaos Druids. That is incredibly rare. I have already killed over 4,000, so I was on my way to the drop rate anyway, but that's still super cool. Now it just would be nice if I could get something even a little bit more rare than that. Alright, and there's 60 strength, probably about another 1,000 kills later. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to training defense. And go figure, not long after the uncut diamond drop, I get a loop half of key. This is a 1 in 16,000 drop. This is incredibly rare. And boom, there's 50 defense. I'm actually going to take a pretty unexpected turn at this point, and I'm going to start training up my magic. Next month, there is a magic requirement that will require me to have 72 magic. So at this point, I think it makes sense for me to start training it now rather than push it off for the future month. Unfortunately, I made this decision a little late, as the Chaos Druids do drop mind runes, but I picked up basically none of them. So that was a little bit of a waste. Thankfully, I did pick up the air runes though, and they did drop a lot of those as well. So thankfully, all we have to do is gather some money, head over to the magic shop and buy some more runes, and get back to fire striking. There we go. We'll go ahead and get started with a quick and easy 5,000 fire strikes. This is nowhere near enough to get all the way up to 72, but I'm not entirely sure I'm going to go all the way up to 72 just yet, but I figured this will be a good little head start. So let's go back to the druids. And would you look at that, a tooth half of key drop. This is a second 1 in 16k drop, and basically means I did the entire casket grind for nothing, as I have another completed crystal key in the bank now. I mean, I can't complain, but also it's a little frustrating that it happened that way. So I'm about 1,200 kills away from having the total amount of herbs I need for 55 Herblore, which is around about 5,000 to 6,000 fire strikes. As you can see here, I'm entirely broke, and I also don't have enough air runes for that many fire strikes. So I'm hoping to make up the difference a little bit along the way, otherwise if I need to I'll just melee the last few. Unfortunately, magic is very expensive. So this guy just goes ahead and shows up and starts killing my druids, and I'm just like, what an absolute champion, rocking the black tee and the dragon two-handed sword. But then I go ahead and quick hop to the next world so I can have a free world. And I see this champion with the rune tea and the bone spear. It's too perfect. Alright, I am all out of air runes, actually. I managed to get up to 66 magic so far from this, but unfortunately, I'm not done with magic. Still have a little ways to go to hit that 73 goal that we have on the horizon, so I'm going to keep fire striking. However, I'm not going to fire strike chaos druids anymore. I'm actually going to give them a break. I've killed a grand total of just under 6,600. My initial target was just over 7,000, but if you add up all of the experience I would get from all of these herbs, it's going to be about 10,000 experience less than I need for the Herblore goal to get super strength potions. However, I'm not too concerned about that, as one of the herbs here, Taroman, requires limpwort roots as its secondary ingredient, and limpwort roots can only be obtained as monster drops. So I'm going to have to be killing a lot more monsters in order to get those secondary ingredients. And the monster I'm going to be killing also happens to drop herbs occasionally. So I feel like I will probably get enough extra herbs in that process to blow past the Herblore goal. And here's how everything looks in the bank. It's kind of a mess because I don't really have a good way to rearrange stuff in my bank right now, but they look pretty good in there. That is a lot of herbs. About 30 hours of collecting so far. As you can see, I also picked up every single water vial and pre-mixed a bunch of guams in there to help save inventory space. Those will be very important, as I'll show you in a little bit when I actually need to collect some vials. Now the next problem is I'm actually completely broke. This cash stack I have right here is all I have to my name, and that's a problem because I want to keep training magic, and magic costs a lot of money. But thankfully I have these 271 mithril swords that I smithed a couple episodes ago, and because the chaos druids dropped a few nature runes, I can go ahead and high elk some of these, and that should give me a little bit more money to work with here. And unfortunately, I used every single last air rune in my bank, so I can't even teleport back to Varrock. I need to walk. But at least I can cast alchemy on these while I walk.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Banknotes didn't exist until the release of RuneScape 2, so putting these swords in banknote form and high-elking them that way is something that I would not be able to do back in original 2002. I also abused this mechanic once before in the July crafting episode, in which I sold all of my holy symbols from a noted form. Realistically, I should have had to walk back and forth from the bank and sell one inventory at a time, so that saved me a number of hours I shouldn't have been able to otherwise. But thankfully I realized this before I got through too many of the mithril swords, so I'm going to sit here and cast alchemy on them in item form instead at the bank, which is kind of unfortunate. And now that cash stack is again immediately gone. Runes are so expensive when you need this many. So by killing the chaos druids, we actually have almost all of the herbs that we need to achieve 55 Herblore, but that's not where our Herblore journey will stop. Of course, you need secondary ingredients to go with these herbs to make consumable potions and get experience out of the herbs, so that's what we'll be doing next time. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, definitely leave a like on the video, and if you're enjoying the series, consider giving the channel a subscription. Take care everyone, and I will see you in the next one.